Well, welcome to another short video ahead of the coaching symposium with Matt Bradbury Sports in July. Delighted to say that today we are joined by somebody who has over 2 decades experience refereeing ice hockey in this country, Mr. Andrew Miller. Andrew, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. And Matt Bradbury's here as well ahead of the symposium.
Good morning.
So Andrew, just start off a bit of a background with you. You've been refereeing for a long time and as a linesman. What made you get into the officiating side of the game?
So I can actually blame Matt partially for this.
I knew this was coming.
I don't know whether he actually realizes. Maybe he does.
I do.
So I was a player in years gone by. I started off ice hockey quite late. I started at 18 because my hometown didn't have an ice rink. So started playing when I was at university. When was at university, I was fortunate enough to be part of the GB University's program, which Matt cut me from. Um,
Yeah, thanks for bringing that. I didn't expect that one to come up, to be fair, but we may as well air it. Yeah, it's good. It
and
was done for a
I'm
reason.
not going to say it was the wrong decision, even though it might have hurt a little bit at the time. But I think at that point I probably realised that I wasn't going to make it to the highest level as a player. So I took the decision to explore other routes. My family's always been really supportive of kind of volunteering and working in the community. So whether it's the local church, the local guide group, whatever it might be. So I've kind of got involved in that side of the sport as well. The only part I've kind of retained on the ice is some work as a coach within university ice hockey. And also working then as a referee. I was really fortunate at quite short notice 20 odd years ago to basically get a call on a Thursday to attend a course in Hull. And I said yes. And then it's kind of gone from there, really.
I resisted the temptation prior to this to get some really awkward scenarios to test the rule book knowledge, but I mean it is one of those things with being a referee, isn't it? Is that working with the coaches, which obviously is the topic of the talk at the symposium, that it's such a high pressure situation. We've seen in the elite league coaches throwing water bottles onto the ice and getting really annoyed. But as a referee, you know the rule book better than probably anybody on the players bench and the coaching bench, and you've got that team around you, the other referee, the two linesmen, to help make the right decision the majority of the time.
Yeah, I mean, teamwork's key, and it's appreciating that actually there's three teams out on the ice. And to have a really good game, you need all three to have a good game. I don't think any official goes out to have a bad game, but everybody isn't perfect and everybody has an off day. And I think people need to respect and acknowledge that and be honest with themselves and one another that that can happen. Um, Emotion is a big part of the game, whether that's emotion that people release as players through giving a big hit after a certain play, scrums around the net. That's all part of the game, and I suppose controlling some of those emotions. We've all got a part to play in that, though, and I think that relationship it's not just about team to team. It is about group to group. It's about players and officials, officials and coaches, coaches and players, and we can all have an impact on one another. And I think one of the things that is a really good discussion point for me for the symposium is how we support those positive relationships. Because if, as an official, you tell a player or a coach they're having a terrible game, and people would be really upset by that. And yet, I think it's fair to say we hear those comments as officials, and having a dialogue at an appropriate time is really important as part of kind of diffusing some of those situations. So Matt's going to be pleased to know that I can't name any examples where he's had a go at me, although I'm sure there are some.
I
Uh,
know.
but it's choosing those moments, and even though Matt and I get on, if he's emotional, I'm going to resist that immediate opportunity to go and speak to him, because I don't want that emotion coming at me, because then that puts me in a difficult position. So having that, I suppose, self-control as an official is important to not get drawn into some of those situations.
Yeah, and there's that way of it, I suppose, in everyday life as well, isn't there? If you're, spoken to in a calm and respectful manner, even about a decision, you're going to respond in a calm and respectful manner. Whereas if they come at you shouting and everything, it's much easier to kind of put a wall up and just not talk to them. But then they get even more annoyed that you're not talking to them. Whereas if the coaches, ask the initial question, so to speak, in the right way, they get a much more helpful response, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that also comes from the captains as well. That relationship's really key, and you can see that week in, week out on the ice at almost every level of the sport. If you've got a really good captain that can have that positive conversation in the right way, it's actually really easy. Clearly, even the best players and the best captains still get emotional, and the really good ones learn how to essentially control that and channel that and know when's the right time to have that conversation. Again, it's also respecting that you're not also always going to agree, whether it's a big penalty decision, whether it's a situation surrounding a goal or a no goal decision. Sometimes fundamentally you just won't agree. And it's just respecting the fact that everybody's doing the best they can with the information they have and the knowledge they've got of the rules and the sport. And yeah, just basically working together effectively to try and manage the game the best we can.
I suppose that's where like the referee zone in front of the timekeeper's bench helps, because the players can't come in there. It forces them to calm down while you talk to your colleagues and work out what the best course of action is. And then in some cases that delay there forces the players to calm down, and you get that better discussion.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And I think one of the things you probably notice as you start to move up the higher leagues is also how the officials come together. Obviously, that's something that junior officials are still learning. They might not communicate effectively together, or they might not realize the right time to have that type of communication. Obviously, there's referees and linesmen. As a referee, I don't need a linesman telling me every 30 seconds that there's been a little chip behind the play. I need to understand if there's something major that I've seen, if they feel like I've seen an incident differently to them, that may have resulted in a penalty. And again, some of those you'll see really formally, where there's a whistle, there's 3 or 4 officials coming together to have a discussion. Sometimes you might just see, particularly in a 4-man system, the back referee changing the skating line to make sure they come close enough to a linesman to go, what did you think of that? Because we're not, like I said at the start, we're not perfect. We do make mistakes, and the feedback from our peers is really valuable to make sure that we're doing the best job we can out there.
Yeah, Matt, there is an underlying respect to all the referees and officials, and of course, when they call a decision that a coach doesn't necessarily agree with, there has to be that understanding of, the coach might be on the other side of the ice to where the official is at that time. So they might have a different angle of it, see it differently. The official, of course, only gets one look at it at full speed, and it's understanding what they saw as well as what the coach saw when they get kind of emotionally charged, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, with respect to what your question was, that was so in depth, and it's like a game of ice hockey. It's so hectic. There's so much going off there, and just listening to what Andrew's saying there, that's what again, it's good to listen from the referee's perspective. And then obviously the referee, I'm not talking during the middle of a game, but I'm talking at the actual symposium, and that chance to have that kind of sit down chat and just say, look, this is what we're seeing, this is what we're feeling, this is what we've got to pull together. And the coach saying, well, yeah, the emotions are high. I've got to calm the players down. I've got to keep them focused, keep them in the right place. And a lot of the time, as we talk about controlling our emotions to the players, and that's one of the biggest things. And if the coach is losing it, and then the players aren't going to follow suit either. And for me, I think as I've gained more experience, and again, we talk about that kind of growth mindset as a coach. And this is what it is. You're always on your way to becoming the top coach or the best coach you can be. You know, the more you start and sit and think about that, the more you're going to hopefully change and look at the way you behave, that will then rub off on the players, and then ultimately will rub off on the relationship that you have with the officials. And quite rightly, Andrew says that, you know, they've got one split second to make that decision. You know, you can have all the video reviews you want, but ultimately we don't play to those rules in the most of our leagues. So we have to go with that. You know what I mean? So no, I'm really looking forward to it. And again, I've selected certain people, and I want certain people to be on board with this symposium. And Andrew, again, looking back with all the other people that are part of the symposium, have been on my journey. And I think that's the key thing. It's not the one where I quit you from the trial, not that part of the journey, but the part of the journey as part of actually being part of the BUIHA and the World Student Games, and attending 5 World Student Games representing Great Britain. You know, it doesn't get any better. And you know, I've travelled to certain parts of the world with Andrew and the rest of the team, Simon Hopkins, you know, Andrew, the strength and conditioning guy, all of those people, Mike Urquhart, bless him, who's no longer with us. All of those people have been part of my journey, and I think that's the key, is we're getting the right speakers and the right people to talk. And people could easily criticize, well, why have you got a referee on this? Why even bother having well, without referees, firstly, we don't have a game. Secondly, there's a lot of experience that can be passed on from other games that they've been refereeing in the National League, in the Elite League, internationally as well. And if we just take a pause and a stop for a moment as a coach and as a referee, that we can have that kind of communication together, and that kind of that better teamwork, as we say, 3 teams on the ice. But for me, the big thing is the feedback is important, not just tirades of abuse officials. The feedback, if it's constructive, can then be looked at, because there might be lots of trends that could be addressed. Same thing with referees feeding back to a coach. You know, it's that mutual kind of feedback. So there's got to be a way that you can ultimately feedback again, for each other, but do it in a sensible and sociable way.
Yeah, Andrew, it's not something that necessarily hear about a lot in ice hockey, but it may happen. You hear it quite a lot in football, in that we're getting young referees, young, you know, linesmen through, and they're quitting because of the abuse they're getting from the sidelines or coaches or what have you. And as Matt says, there is no game without the officials. So we need to not be discouraging officials from doing it, because they are traveling late at night, getting home late after working in the week. And you know, it's the last thing we want is for them to all decide that they don't want to do it anymore, because then there's no more ice hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I don't work the junior leagues in the same way that I used to, but it's a challenge in almost every sport, and again, it's not just football. How people communicate is really important, and in sport, often some of the differentiating factors on whether somebody even chooses to participate as a player is how they're spoken to, whether they feel supported, etc. That's no different for a non-ice official. If you've got a coach shouting at you as a player every week, why would you want to go to that training session? It's no different as an official. So respect is a really important thing, and particularly if it's a junior league, if it's a very young official, because officials can be in their teen years as well. It's being respectful that actually you're communicating almost with a child, and some of the things that people might shout from the stands because they think, well, it's just a referee. It's like, no, that's a child, and people need to respect that child is learning, and they're on their journey in ice hockey. And what everybody wants is for them to have a really positive journey to achieve their potential, whether that's as a player, as a coach, as an official, as an off-ice official, doesn't matter. We want everybody to have that positive experience. So I think probably one of the things that I'll touch on in the symposium is also how people's understanding outside of officials on the rules can also support some of that. I was really fortunate to take part in an England ice hockey coaching course in Nottingham last year, I think it was, where I actually did kind of a rules test on the screen, and people have been playing for years, and some groups got less than half marks. And again, it's not anticipating that anybody's going to get 100% because the top officials might get 100%, but everybody's on that learning journey. The point is to emphasize the fact that it's a complex sport. Some things aren't black and white. And particularly in some of the idiosyncrasies of the rules and how they change over the years, it's often really difficult to keep up to date with some of that knowledge. So really the challenge to coaches is what role they play in that, because actually all an official does is skate out on a slab of ice on a Saturday or a Sunday generally, and say whether somebody was slashed in a way. It's the coach that actually spends the time educating that player on what isn't acceptable. So that understanding is really important to support that player development and make sure that they're playing to their full potential, but still operating within the rules of the game.
Yeah, and just I appreciate you may not know the answer to this one. How are we doing in terms of numbers of officials in this country? Are we kind of desperate for some more, or are the numbers kind of healthy at the moment?
I mean, that'd be a question for Ice Hockey UK ultimately. I know there's been an awful lot of recruitment this year because we did have some challenges with numbers of people. I think it's also kind of region specific, as far as I understand. But the team are working really hard to kind of bring more officials through the program. Obviously, the challenge in that is that every official that steps on the ice following kind of their first course is only at the start of their journey. And again, it's appreciating that it could be their first, second, fifth game, and they might be doing an under-16s game, but they're still quite inexperienced and learning themselves. So again, if that's a young person in particular, the coach is actually really important to kind of work with that young official, and start kind of building that really positive relationship so that if they do something wrong, which inevitably we all do, they can have that honest, positive conversation, and that young official can learn from that experience. Because fundamentally, that's what we all want, is for everybody to learn and grow and enjoy the sport.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, particularly in the junior levels when officials are just starting out, and see, everybody wants to win. I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but there's not millions of prize money affecting all the decisions like you see in like the top level of football or what have you. This is all just, the kids are learning, the officials are learning, and it's all just about that development. It's kind of, yes, you want to win, but remembering that at a time, there's not mortgages on the line depending on where a team finishes, for example.
No, it's a game of hockey, isn't it? It's a game of hockey, and you're right. Everybody wants to win. Everyone wants to try to win, but obviously everybody has different values, and I think that's the key is you want, you can't win a game from the penalty box, or it's very difficult to win a game from the penalty box unless you practice religiously on your short-handed plays, lots and lots, expecting to take a lot of penalties. But no, it's got to be instilled from the lower level. I think the key is as well is, I think probably, if anything, looking at junior referees, just give them a little bit more time and give them a little bit more support. Don't fast track them too early. It's a bit like the same thing with an ice hockey player. If you fast track them too early, they get to a stage where they get frustrated. They can't do what they want to do on the ice as a player. And if you move them too quickly, then they end up quitting as well, or end up just not enjoying it as much. So it's key to get the right people. It's a bit like an ice hockey team, having the right personnel around your team to give them that kind of right support. And I think that's what the English Ice Hockey Association and the referees program will be doing more. And I think it's going to get better and better over the next few years, because there's some experienced people in there, and I think that's the key. So I think we've got to trust them. I think we've got to work together, and I think we've got to try and make those steps collaboratively.
Yeah, Andrew, it's been wonderful speaking to you this morning. Thank you for your time. Just finally, you've refereed a lot of games. Do you have a favorite game you've ever refereed?
Good question.
You should have given some time. Do you want me to fill? Do you want me to fill for a second while you have a think? You have a think.
It's all right. I think my favorite game was probably it was actually a game that I wasn't expecting to do. I was really fortunate to go away with the IIHF to Ukraine and officiate under 20s in Kiev at Division 1. And for the final game, I was actually the reserve official. At that kind of tournament, you always have people in reserve in case something happens. And ordinarily it doesn't, but unfortunately in this game, an official did get hurt, and I basically got called up to referee the rest of that game. I think it's fair to say colleagues I work with know that I get changed quite quickly, and my supervisor at the tournament was quite surprised that I appeared on the ice after about 4 minutes, fully kitted up. And yeah, I think arguably it was my best game of the tournament. It was a really challenging game, clearly, because it was in kind of the final stages where the medals were being decided. And I think having had the disappointment to not get selected for that round of games at the tournament, to have that opportunity to go out and I suppose show what I could do in that situation, knowing how challenging it would be entering a game halfway through with basically no warm-up. I went out and I did a job to the best of my ability, and like I say, I think it was probably the best game I had that tournament.
Do you remember what the score was in it?
Oh, no idea. You could ask me the score in almost any game that I've done, and I probably can't tell you.
Matt, so the symposium is getting ever closer. If people haven't already registered to join for the weekend and hear from the likes of Andrew, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, everything's available on the website at www.mattbradburysports.com. We're out there on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Have you got TikTok, Mr. Miller? I always ask the guests, have you got TikTok? No dancing then. That'll be it.
Apparently I'm too old, Matt, to have TikTok. I mean, I've also been told I've got the most boring Twitter in the world, but
but we're looking forward to announcing we've been busy, and we've got 3 more conversation speakers lined up, and I'm really looking forward to linking up with Andrew, as well as I'm looking forward to speaking to Lee Waters as well, who's off to the World Championship. So hopefully we'll be speaking to him very soon. And he's a good guy to look at. He's working with the officials in the IIHF, as well as he'll be talking about decision making and also sports performance psychology. So we're looking forward to that one. So busy times, but if you want to sign up, it's via the website, and just take a look. See, there's loads of opportunities out there. Accommodation, food, everything's included. Different packages. But we look forward to welcoming you in Nottingham on the 13th and 14th of July.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Matt says, we've got plenty more coming in the build up to the symposium, so keep an eye on all of the social media channels for more chats with our guests. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We'll let you get on with the rest of your days, particularly as we look ahead to summer and some time away from the ice, and probably more on the golf course as well.
Oh, I don't golf. Unfortunately, it will be jobs around the house that were supposed to be completed before the start of last season for me.
I think that's probably the same for all of us. But yeah, www.mattbradburysports.com is the place to go for registering for the symposium.